I am Cyrus, son of the Persians, heir to the Achaemenid line, born not as the great ruler the world would one day remember, but simply as a child stepping into a destiny far larger than myself. I entered the world in the lands of Anshan around the early 600s BCE, long before I understood the weight my name would eventually carry. My father, Cambyses of Anshan, was a Persian king. My mother, Mandane, was the daughter of Astyages, the king of the Medes. Before I even learned to walk, my fate had already been braided together between two nations, two cultures, two visions of the world. And maybe that is why my life would become a balance between mercy and strength, conquest and justice, war and peace. My childhood was not one of endless luxury, as later generations might imagine. I grew up among stone courtyards, dusty winds, and the disciplined, simple life of the Persians. That discipline shaped me. My father used to tell me, a king must first master himself before he masters anything else. Those words carved themselves into me. My mother, on the other hand, was gentle and thoughtful. She taught me stories, the traditions of the Medes, the delicate differences between people and their customs. Even as a child, I sensed that being both Persian and Median made me different, that I was meant to understand more than one world. My education began early. Among Persians, a boy is expected to learn three things: to speak the truth, to shoot accurately, and to ride fearlessly. I threw myself into each of these arts. But beyond the martial training, knowledge fascinated me. Median scholars taught me mathematics, the observations of the skies, and the workings of governance. Persian warriors taught me how strategy isn't just strength, but timing and intuition. The priests taught me about fire, Ahura Mazda, and the eternal struggle between truth and falsehood. All these teachings gave me something deeper than skill, they gave me a soul shaped by purpose. As I entered my youth, the outlines of my fate grew sharper. When I traveled to Media, the first time I walked into my grandfather Astyages' palace, I sensed something was wrong. His court was heavy with fear. His rule was maintained not through love or wisdom, but through terror. Even at his table, people sat stiff and silent, afraid of drawing his anger. One day, he looked at me with a strange and unsettling expression, as if my very existence threatened him. Years later I learned why. Before my birth, Astyages had a dream that his grandson would overthrow him and rule all of Asia. The dream interpreters told him that child would be me, and he wanted me dead. I survived only because fate, or perhaps divinity, intervened. When I returned to Anshan, something inside me was already burning. The Medes had oppressed the Persians for generations. Everywhere I looked, I saw the tired eyes of my people, humble but proud, longing for freedom, weighed down by injustices. I realized then that change was inevitable. But it had to be done not with reckless rebellion, but with strategy, patience, and clarity. I never saw war as a chance for destruction, I saw it as the doorway to justice. In 553 BCE, I rose against the Medes. That decision, even now, trembles in my memory. This wasn't just a political revolt, it was the rebirth of a people. I didn't want to be a tyrant replacing another tyrant. I wanted to be the leader who freed his people without turning into the monster he defeated. My army fought not only with swords but with information, speed, and strategic brilliance. I struck where Astyages was weakest and united tribes that had long been divided. In the end, I defeated the Median army and took my grandfather's throne. But I did not kill him. I spared him. Because vengeance is the path of anger, not wisdom. I chose order over rage. That single decision would shape how the world remembered me. After the Medes came the Lydians. Croesus, the king of Lydia, was famed for his wealth, intelligence, and pride. Our conflict was inevitable. At Sardis, we clashed in a battle that has echoed through history. My armies prevailed, but again, I did not destroy him. Some say I saved him from execution. Whether myth or memory, the truth is this: a king gains nothing by annihilating his enemy, but everything by transforming him. As my empire grew, my ideals became clearer. I never sought to force any nation to become Persian. Every people in my empire was free to live in their own faith, language, and culture. This is why so many welcomed me not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. I remember walking into Babylon, expecting resistance. Instead, people greeted me with flowers. Their joy humbled me. I did not pillage Babylon. I did not destroy temples. I did not enslave its people. I honored the god Marduk, respected the priests, and restored order. For me, ruling was not about domination, it was about responsibility. One of the most profound moments of my life was encountering the Jewish people, who had suffered for decades in the Babylonian exile. Their sorrow was unlike anything I had seen. Their eyes carried generations of despair. My heart could not ignore them. I freed them, allowed them to return to their homeland, and supported the rebuilding of their temple. Their gratitude was so deep that they later recorded my name in their holy scriptures, calling me the Anointed One. They saw me as a savior, not a conqueror. This was not political calculation. It was human decency. Under my rule, the empire became the largest the world had ever known. But what I valued most was not its size, but its balance. I studied every culture I encountered. Babylonian law, Median administration, Persian discipline, Lydian wealth, and from them all, I forged something new. I reorganized the empire using a system of satrapies. Local governors maintaining their traditions while upholding imperial unity. It was not perfect, but it allowed diversity and stability to coexist. I also wrote, or commanded to be written, what the future would call the Cyrus cylinder. They say it is the world's first human rights declaration. To me, it was simply the truth written in clay, that people should live in freedom, that temples should be respected, that displaced families should go home, that rulers must protect their people, not torment them. Every victory I achieved, every law I made, came from this belief: power must serve justice, not crush it. But even a king is human. I had fears. I had regrets. Sometimes at night, alone in my tent. On distant campaigns, I wondered whether my empire would survive me. Whether my ideals would outlive the sword. Whether people would remember who I was, or reshape me into someone else entirely. These thoughts kept me humble. A king who believes he is a god is already lost. I never forgot that I was human. When my final days approached, I looked upon what I had built, an empire stretching across vast lands. Persians, Medes, Babylonians, Lydians, Jews, Elamites, and many others living under my protection. Different languages, different gods, different customs, all sharing the same peace. That was my dream, and I had lived to see it. Modern historians debate me endlessly. Some call me a visionary. Some call me a merciful king. Some call me a brilliant strategist. Others insist that any conqueror must have shadows. They may all be right. But if I could describe myself in my own words, I would say, I was a man who fought for justice, carried power with humility, and placed the well-being of my people above my own ambition. My tomb in Pasargadae is simple. I did not want gold, nor towering monuments. Because true greatness lives in the hearts of people, not in stone. If the world remembers me today, if my name is still spoken, then perhaps my ideals truly lived on. I am Cyrus, son of the Persians, founder of empires, liberator of nations, and servant of justice. I entered this world as a child, walked through it as a man, and left behind not only an empire but a vision of how humanity could live in peace.